a lot of people, even though that the 49ers did come out with a victory, are feeling like the 49ers lost, right? Obviously, the injuries played a role in that, but the big comeback that Detroit had that nearly, nearly tied the game up, thanks to some staunch defense at the last defensive stand, kind of, sealed the game. But for the first 3 quarters, and I would say 3.5 quarters, the defense played. In the beginning, the run defense wasn't very good, but they came up with timely stops when they needed to, and then they started to really kind of dominate the game as far as Detroit really couldn't move the ball down the field and never really got into any kind of scoring position. But then all of a sudden, people want to use kind of Verrett when Verrett, went down. All of a sudden, kind of it seemed like the defense let the rope go. But what did you see as the biggest difference in the defense from the first 3.5 quarters to that run that Detroit made where they nearly came back and tied the game?
Yeah, it was really over only like the last, 7 minutes of the game or something like that, 7.5 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it was that Detroit ran 29 plays, in the last half of the quarter. And that's rough. They were throwing the ball quite a bit. Verrett goes down, so there's a little bit of a letdown maybe there. They score a touchdown, which really isn't that big of a deal. It's still a 41-25 ball game. It should end. My biggest thing there is the George Kittle fumble. Mm-hmm. George Kittle doesn't hold on to the kick, the onside kick. Puts the defense right back on the field. They just gave up. They just had Verrett go down. They just gave up a touchdown, and now they're put right back on the field without really being able to get anything going. And then also when they go back onto the field, it's all the backups. It's Ambry Thomas and Talanoa Hufanga and can't think of the other Tavon Wilson. Mm-hmm. All the backups go into the game. They take out Bosa. They take out Dee Ford, right? Uh-huh. And what happens? They go right down the field and score again. And then they get the 2-point conversion. So now you're stuck at 41-33. And so that's why when I hear all the complaining about the way that this game was handled, why was Verrett in the game to begin with? And what I don't know if we're going to get into that later, but you got to remember the 49ers defense has Jason Verrett, injury history. Jimmy Ward, injury history. They've got the strong safety, Jaquiski Tartt, injury histories. He hasn't played more than, he's averaging 9 games over the last 4 years.
Nick Bosa.
Yeah, everybody, they have, and so, okay, Jason Verrett is extremely important to the team this year. I understand that. So do you pull him off and put in somebody else? I guess, you could do that. But what happens if, but then what happens if the injury occurs to Jimmy Ward? Right? What happens so if you want to pick and choose and you want to blame the injury on Shanahan, I understand that. I actually tweeted that out at one point saying, why are these guys in the game? Or why is him and Dee Ford in the game at that point? But the more you think about it, the more you realize that this team has a lot of injury histories on the defense. And so you're going to get stuck. Yeah. And just because you take one guy out, okay, maybe it would have saved him yesterday. Maybe it wouldn't have. I don't, maybe somebody else would have been injured. You just never know. It's the what if game. And that's what we're playing when we say, why didn't they take him out?
Yeah. I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020 and, it's overreaction Monday. So everybody, is a critic or like an analyst and an expert on Mondays, but it's tough. I mean, I looked at the defense and I thought that they shifted the way that they played, Jacket. You're better at seeing these things than me, but it looked like they stopped being as aggressive as they were during the first 3.5 quarters, and they went into that kind of like prevent defense. It wasn't like pure prevent, but like prevent mentality, where it was just kind of like don't let any big plays happen. But we see that prevent type mentality go for 10 yards every single play, 10 yards every single play, 10 yards every single play. And that's kind of what happened with Detroit. They just started getting these, first downs very easily, and then were able to score a touchdown, at the end of their drives. And I don't know if,
sure.
DeMeco Ryans, if, he just went into that just because that's kind of like what everybody does when they're up that much with, a few minutes left in the game. But I wish he just would have kept his normal defense, like what he was doing throughout the whole game. I don't think that game gets close if he stays, aggressive with his defensive line, with his blitz packages, and I don't think Goff had any answers for when he was getting pressured. He was just making bad throw after bad throw, and the Detroit wasn't moving the ball. So am I wrong in seeing that there was a shift in scheme as well, or was I just seeing things?
No, I think you're right. I think they had the injury and they started to play a little softer on the back end. You also, like I said, on the one drive, you had all the backups in the game, and they were able to take advantage of that. Right there towards the end of the third quarter, the 49ers are up 38-10. Ryans brings a blitz, and Detroit has the perfect play call on it. They throw a screen against the blitz, which is always a good call because you're going to get guys up the field and you're going to have man covered on the back end to block those guys. And you have Jimmy Ward just completely whiff on the running back, right? So it's a matter of a bunch of different. I think there's a lot of different things that went into it. I think a lot of it was getting burned on a blitz. They came back from that and they had a couple of good stops. And I just think they were, they had the injury and they're up 41-17. I think everybody's had a little bit of a letdown at that point,
right.
And
they took
all kinds of things.
I guess for sure.
Sure. You got, and again, it goes back. You got to remember there was a touchdown, 41-25. If you recover the onside kick, you're gonna take 3 minutes off the game clock. Right. And you don't. You fumble it. You don't get it, and you give the ball right back to them, and you let them drive right back down the field with your backups on the field.
Right. And then the Debo fumble. Otherwise, the game would have been sealed there as well. Mangold says, do you think the players will have any hangover effect from the Verrett injury? What do you think, Jack?
No, I don't think so. I think they didn't have any of that last year when Nick Bosa and all these guys went down. In week 2 they came back and they smacked New York, the Jets the next week. I think it's a very similar situation here. You had a bad team that they beat, had some injuries against while beating a bad team, and they're going to go play a bad team on Sunday, and I think they'll be fine.
I gotta disagree with you with the bad team being. I don't think the Eagles are a bad team, my man. They played really, really well. Obviously, it was against Atlanta, but they looked decent, man. I don't think they're an easy win for the 49ers.
No, and it might not be an easy win, but you got to remember, Philadelphia won 4 games last year. Atlanta won 4
against who?
Well, I understand because Nick Mullins and the 49ers, and the 49ers weren't a very good team last year when they didn't have their backup quarter, when they had injuries, the injuries that they had, which were a lot more than what they have right now.
Right.
They had their backup quarterback in that game, and he played poorly. He missed some easy throws that should be hit. And Atlanta's not a good team. Atlanta's not they weren't a good defense last year. They're not a good team this year. It's just more of the same. I mean, they were an okay team. They were a team that probably should have won some more games than they did a year ago, but at the same time, they were giving up points left and right. And I think that the Eagles are going to be fine. But, yesterday on our show, if you go back to what we talked about, one of the things that I kept saying was week 1, weird stuff happens. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw some of that around the league. I don't think that the New Orleans Saints are 35 points better than the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
And I don't think that necessarily. I think if the Eagles and the Falcons play again, it's probably not, quite. That was a close game until right at the end of the half.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is the Eagles had a lot of people out that are back now for their team as well. So I think that the 49ers can win, and we're going to get into that later, but I don't think it's a bad team. Like you said, it was a bad team. I don't think they should be going into the game thinking that this is an easy victory by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I don't mean it in that way, because no win in the NFL, you should never go into a game thinking that it's going to be an easy win. You do that, and if you go into a game expecting to win like that, like you're just going to go in and walk over another team, that's when you're going to get beat. So
yeah,
no, I don't see that. I mean, but I'm just saying they're the better team still.
And Philly always plays the 49ers tough. Like that's always been kind of like a matchup where no matter how bad Philly is, for some reason they always like to play the 49ers really tough.